Hello, welcome to the vlog. It's only 9 o'clock in the morning and already it is steamingly hot. The sun is out, there's barely a breath of air, the water is absolutely flat calm. Should be a lovely day for going up the River Avon. As soon as you set off, you go under King John's Bridge, built first in 1190 but rebuilt many times since. A warning blast because it's very hard to see if anyone's coming the other way, as the bridge hole is at an angle to the direction of the river. On your left, weirs down to the bit of the River Avon that goes off to join the Severn, and you are advised to keep right because of the current, which might pin you embarrassingly against the concrete. Busy dead ahead, boats, marinas and wharves either side. You get your first taste of the size of craft you'll find on a nice wide river here. Lots of thumping great wide beams, Dutch barges and assorted other boats. I must admit, if ever I was to live on a boat on a river, I could be tempted by one of these. Something with a big wheelhouse and a shapely curve to the lines of the hull. Past Tewkesbury Marina and out into green and very pleasant lands. This is going to be a trip of distant memories for me, because my father used to keep a boat down here when I was a kid, so it's all vaguely familiar, but from almost 40 years ago. I wonder if anything much has changed. I'll find out in a minute as I go past the sailing club we used to go to, and later our old mooring. Meanwhile, a return to my usual pastime of house ogling, this very regal palace being perched in a splendid spot. Here it is, Tewkesbury Cruising and Sailing Club, with a long line of their own moorings, mostly for small sailing boats, 20 to 30-footer, two-berth weekenders, that kind of thing. A few dinghies and motor cruisers complete the line-up. There's the clubhouse, which does look exactly as it was when I was last here. They store dinghies and kayaks underneath, and I used to run around and play under there. This must be the club committee. The Commodore, flag officer and the rest of the members come to check me out. Let's hope I don't get blackballed. Nobody wants that. The little hut is race control. They have lots of sailing races up and down the river here. It can get quite busy on a nice weekend. It was lovely to see all of that again. Odd to think that the last time I was here, I was probably about 10 or 11 years old, and in those nearly 40 years, it hasn't changed a bit. They'll mostly be just the river and fields from now until the little village of Bredon, and that's where Dad used to keep the boat. It was always an interesting trip down and back to the sailing club for us, for reasons I will explain in a moment. On the right is Bredon Hill. It's a nature reserve, which we'll spend the next few miles going around. I film a lot of cows by the waterside, I know, but I rather like these multicolour ones, as if someone with a cow stamp had dipped it in assorted inks to produce a variety. River moorings are quite scarce. It's not like the canal where you can stop anywhere. Up here on the left is a pub which not only has mooring for customers, but some pay-as-you-go overnight moorings, although at a tenner a night for a bit of grassy bank I think that's a bit steep. Narrowboats are too long to moor on these. That is the advantage that fiberglass cruisers have. They tend to be quite compact. There's the pub on the left. What a great spot to pull up to on a sunny day and have half a lager shandy before boating back home again. It's wide, peaceful, tranquil and sunny. I didn't know what to expect from the River Avon, but I'm really enjoying this so far. Maybe canals aren't for me after all. The piece is disturbed by the M5 motorway, and this is what made the journey to the sailing club a challenge for us all those years ago. You see, our mooring was on the other side of that, and Dad's boat had a mast that was higher than the gap under the bridge, so if we went straight under, the mast would get ripped off. Instead, Dad rigged up a system to lean the mast back on a pulley to a precise angle, which meant that at normal river levels it would just be low enough to clear the bridge. Once through, he'd pull it up and fasten it securely. We did the same on the return journey as well, of course. Funny going under it in a narrowboat now, with no such concerns. We're also coming up to where we used to keep the boat. You can just see a little line of moorings next to the trees up ahead. If I recall correctly, a farmer called Albert used to own the field behind these trees, and he put moorings along the edge of it, one of which we used for many years. Dad's boat was a 29-foot, I think, Cornish crabber, a 4-berth sailing boat based on a traditional Cornish fishing design, with a little Yanmar inboard engine as well. You see that spot nearest to us by the big bush, the one with the motor cruiser on it? That was ours. Dad used to let me steer to moor the boat sometimes, under his supervision. I always liked using the engine way more than sailing, so no surprise I'm on a canal boat now, really. It won't mean anything to you, of course, but for me that was a wonderful bit of nostalgia. Pretty sure this is an albatross, or it might be a vulture. Neither bode well for a drifting mariner. One thing you notice about rivers is a lot more of the cruisers and dayboats, but there is so much space you don't have to worry about getting too close and crushing them like on a canal, and they were all very friendly. As I turn this corner, ahead is the Severn Sailing Club, even though we're not on the River Severn anymore but on the Avon. Guess where the Avon Sailing Club is based? Go on, I dare you. Yes, you're absolutely right. Next, a rather important landmark, or watermark I suppose, in more ways than one, as this is the Coventry water main, and it signals something special just up ahead. I'm coming up to my first River Avon lock, which should be interesting. Apparently there's also a loo emptying point there, which is quite good, because I'm in urgent need of emptying my cassettes. Too much information? Probably, but it's a fact of boating life, and one you can easily start to obsess about when on the move. My guidebook, which the Avon Trust sold me at Tewkesbury, said there'd be a couple of weirs just before the lock, and this is one of them. The other follows seconds later, and with the water levels being so low on the river at this point, they're nothing to be worried about. I can't feel any current from them pushing me either sideways or backwards. Quite majestic to look at, though. The lock is ahead, through that gap, and then oddly twisted at an angle to the left, with the lock landing rather awkwardly placed on the right. This is going to involve a bit of manoeuvring. Not bad if I say so myself, and swiftly into the lock with the help of an Avon Trust volunteer who was cutting the grass. Beware, the Avon locks are vicious when you open the paddles, a lot of turbulence, so do tie your boat. This was awkward though. I want to stop on the lock landing on the left to empty my loo, but the boat coming in doesn't know that and is waiting for me to exit. I ended up half leaving the lock, letting him come by and then reversing. It's very handy having toilet and water facilities on the locks, I must say. Ah, there's Goose, possibly Maverick and Iceman too, the flying elite doing a little runway practice today. Yet another sailing club appears on the horizon. This is Arden Sailing Club, and seems to have much the same sort of things going on as the others already passed. Not many narrowboats moored around these parts, I can't help noticing. I'd been warned river folk don't think much of us ditch dwellers, but so far everyone's been very friendly. The bridge ahead is Deferred Railway Bridge, another landmark shown in the guidebook, which also tells you which arch to pass under for the best depth of water. Similarly, a little bit further on as you get to Eckington Bridge, there are a number of arches, but the depth of water beneath each of them is not necessarily usable, so the book and the sign on the bridge itself make it clear where you're supposed to go, keeping a watchful eye out for anyone coming the other way, of course. And on the other side, a treat of free moorings provided by the Avon Navigation Trust, but that's not where I was intending to stop. There's a huge 180-degree bend in the river here, which I've sped up, or we'll be here all day. Guess what? Yes, that's still Bredon Hill in the distance. It's a bit like those power stations from the Trent and Mersey, which kept following me around. It's splendidly scenic though. One day I'll go for a walk up there. I bet you can see for miles. If my navigation is correct, I should shortly be coming up to the second lock. Here's a typical page from the guidebook, with locks, obstructions and directions all clear. Same sort of thing as before, as you'd expect. Weir ahead and a lock to the left with a small lock landing. That's one thing you notice, I'd say, on the river. It's all a bit more cruiser-shaped and not so much narrowboat-shaped, but it is perfectly doable. And again, there are lots of signs, so you shouldn't go wrong. This lock is slightly unusual though. Gates at the end, as you'd expect, but a swing bridge for pedestrians in the middle, which you're obliged to leave closed when you exit the lock. And it's very awkward leaving here in a narrowboat because you have to do a 90-degree sharp right, and as you know, the back of the boat wants to go left while the front is going right, but the side of the lock rather prevents that. Also, I'd had to pull the boat forward, which is what you're seeing now, to shut the swing bridge, so that left me needing a push-off at the front to try to swing it round in order to make the turn. There was a pretty dire warning of getting this wrong directly ahead. This is me pushing the bow out, hoping it'll give me enough clearance to turn. But when I engaged the engine, the back was still against the lock side and would barely move, so neither would the front, and all I ended up doing was nudging ever closer to the green buoys. For a moment I really did think I was just going to go straight over, but finally it twisted round, and with a quick toot, in case of anyone coming the other way on the blind bend, I was able to squeeze around the corner. With hindsight, I should have pulled the boat to the other side of the lock before trying to leave, and that would have given me more space to make it turn. Adding insult to injury, this lovely waggy dog decided to mock me as I went by. I'm pretty sure that's what he was doing. And he brought his mate along too, so he could laugh at my ineptness as well. Even the sheep gave me a pitying baa. Thankfully, the cows were less interested in lock shenanigans. Here's my target for this evening's mooring, Comberton Quay. It's another free spot provided by the Trust, and it's nicely out in the sticks. There's another boat already there, but with space for two, they were kind enough to shuffle forward, and I could slot onto the end. That's it for this vlog. Next time, join me as I continue up the Avon, including going through the oddest shaped lock you ever did see. Bye for now.